Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to your number one podcast, The World of Gaming, where we discuss everything that the world of gaming has to offer games, news, and technology. And of course, each and every week we do that with this fantastic community. And I can see that the chat is already filling up with a lot of familiar names here. Welcome to you guys. You literally drive this show and make it to what it is. Oh, thanks for being here. The other part that drives this show are my fantastic guests. And this week we have a good friend of mine, Wandering Dutch. How are you doing, my man?
I am doing well. I am doing well. Of course, backstage we just had a discussion about work and the lovely joys of work and work stresses and whatnot. But yeah, they are awesome. Awesome. Other than the heat, I've got the window open. Other than the heat and hay fever and things, all is good. All is good.
I like to hear that. I like to hear that, and I do hope the hay fever's over for you soon. I know you've been dealing with it for a few weeks now. So yeah. And other than that, the heat, yeah, dude. Germany is also, especially the south of Germany where I live, we are hit very heavy with the heat wave.
I can deal with it during the day. It's the nighttime heat. It's when you're trying to sleep and you're like, God, it's so warm. And you open the window hoping for a breeze and nothing comes through.
And you're like, during the day, I'm like, really, I just want to turn this damn PC off, but I gotta work. And it is like it is. The heat is not why we are here. We are here to discuss some awesome gaming topics. And of course, we are gonna do that. It isn't the biggest news week. It really isn't. But there are still a few fantastic topics to talk about. There was a big interview with The Verge with the developers of Plague Tale Requiem, so we got some news there. We have some Fable news, not the big news, but something interesting to talk about. We have PlayStation news. We have Red Dead Redemption to talk about. We have a couple of controversies. You know, like when game releases are slow and news cycles are slow, people start to get into controversies, and I definitely want to address a couple of them here today. So there is really no shortage in stuff to talk about, and that's the beauty about gaming. I think there's always something interesting to discuss, and we are definitely gonna do that today. But first, I want to make a brief announcement. Like I did that last week, but it's more like a reminder then. Next week's World of Gaming is gonna be a super special episode. We have 4 different members from the community that usually don't do podcasts joining us here. We will have Dave Ramos coming here on. Retri is coming on. We have Astrays Gaming and Peter joining us here next week. Those are probably familiar names to you guys. They are always active on Twitter. They are always active here in the chat. And they usually didn't don't do podcasts. And I said, hey, let's get the community on, do a community special. So that's got to be an exciting episode, and we will have that next week. So, but with no further ado, I want to go into the games of the week. Dude, I don't know what is happening with these jingles. Like when I play them, sometimes they start with the audio starts very fast and then it's kind of slows down. I have no idea what and why is this is happening, but yeah, it is. It is. Dutch, tell us, what have you been playing? And guys in chat, you also let us know in the chat, what are you playing right now?
Yeah, this week for me, so far, I have literally only played Sea of Thieves. I have not played anything else this week. I have been, however, after relentless advisement, started to watch The Boys. So I've I've watched season 1. I'm almost at the end of season 2. So I'm catching up on that. After I relentlessly advised a lot of people to watch Stranger Things, and they did. So it was my turn to watch a series. So I've caught up with that. So I've been watching The Boys because, of course, naturally, the coolest room in the house is the living room, so I've just been crashing on the sofa there, trying to keep cool. Doing that, but yeah, Sea of Thieves otherwise, which like I say, I'm glad that I'm only doing that once a week as well. I love the time that we play it. Of course, we get a good 6 to 8 people on every week playing that game, 2 full ships full, so it's an awesome time. But I think any more than once or twice a week on Sea of Thieves, and it would be a bit too much, I think, sailing for me. I'm happy with a nice bite-sized chunk of like 2.5 hours, 3 hours a week to play that game. It's nice. Have a good adventure. You relax a bit. You come back to it the next week. You do another adventure. It's good. It's good fun. What about yourself?
Sweet. Well, I have been playing Diablo 3 again. All that hype around Diablo 4 got me excited, and I have actually some footage here. Let me just briefly change the overlay, and I just let a little bit of Diablo 3 run here in parallel, playing here with Xbox Mike, who has been on this show before. I carried him. I tried to push him and advance him with his character. We did like he leveled up 70 levels or so in one sitting,
Nice.
which was awesome. And you see a little footage here running in the background. So yeah, I've been playing that, and then I went back to Cyberpunk. It's actually the one that kept me busy the most. Yeah, I just played so many smaller games, indie games, that I had the urge to play something big again, some AAA blockbusters, and so I'm playing another playthrough of my second playthrough now on Cyberpunk. This time, of course, with the current gen patch. It really runs good now on console.
I think we swapped roles, because you started off as Corpo in your first playthrough, and I started off as Nomad. This time around, because I checked as well, I started my second playthrough as Corpo, and I started as Nomad. So we've literally swapped.
We swapped roles here.
Swapped,
yeah, nice. So those are basically the two games that kept me busy for the most part. A little Fall Guys in between. So yeah. Let me briefly catch up on a super chat. The first one of the day comes in from our generous friend Drawn TJ. He says, "Hi guys, my two favorite people across the globe. How are you? Did you hear that the new Midnight Club game might be in development?" I immediately thought of you, dude, when I heard that. But I think it is only a rumor. It is not confirmed, right? Have you heard it, Dutch?
I've heard the rumor. Yeah, I've heard the rumor.
Yeah,
it's a fingers crossed. Midnight Club was a cool game. It was a really cool game. I think going forward, there's going to be a good few rehashes of certain franchises. I do believe Need for Speed's probably in the right hands now. They've got a couple of developers on the next Need for Speed, which will be good. Of course, you've got Test Drive, Solar Crown coming out soon as well. That's going to be awesome. Of course, the return of Forza. Then you've of course that as well. It's Midnight Club return. So if that is the case, then there's going to be a lot of racing goodness to play and a lot of great franchises that should be returning. So fingers crossed.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. So yeah, let's see what the people in chat are playing here. Mr. Joe in the Dark is playing his favorite game, Peppa the Pig.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few people actually playing that don't have children.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. Dutch, help me out here. I don't understand it. What is going on?
I know it's an easy 1000 G, so I know a few people doing that. It's an hour and a half for the full 1000.
Oh, okay. So it's Achievement Hunters. Yeah, I get it. Okay. Then we have Thanaros playing Greedfall. He says he's addicted. Ooh. Dude, that is an awesome game. Really a hidden gem. Have you played Greedfall?
Played a little bit of it, but I dip into so many games. I really need to give it a proper shot because I've heard great things about it. I've heard it's a really good game.
It really is. If you like the old BioWare games, not talking Anthem or any of those, but if you like the old school BioWare games, go and play Creedfall. It is a phenomenal game. Of course, you can tell at some points that it is a double A game. Like, for instance, the animations, of course, are not on I don't know, a Naughty Dog quality. Yeah. They are not. But the story is fantastic. The choices you get to make, the world is beautifully designed, lots of diversity in the environments, and it's just a fantastic RPG. Highly recommend that. Good choice here, Thanos. What else are people playing? Sin is playing Road 96 and Echo Generation. That is awesome. A lot of people seem to watch The Boys too. Yeah. What else have people playing? Peppa the Pig and Paw Patrol. Yeah. I have downloaded Paw Patrol because that's the game my kids are gonna love.
I see Ballantone playing Road 96. Apparently, that's a really good game as well. That's just come into Game Pass.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into it. Ballantone is playing that. Yeah, true. Sepho is playing Mortal Kombat 11. That's awesome. Che is playing Deliver Us the Moon. Awesome game. I'm actually trying to get the developers on the show. The sequel is coming out in September. Deliver Us Mars. Can't wait. So yeah, Stuffed Sean is playing Mass Effect 1, which is also always a good choice. Yeah, man, good stuff. That the chat is on fire. That is awesome to hear. And now I think we can move towards the news of the week. All right. Yeah, like I said in the intro, not the biggest news week, but there's still plenty of stuff happening. Just earlier today, we had like 2 things happening, and I definitely wanted to add to our topics. So yeah, A Plague Tale Requiem. I know you're excited for it. I know I am, and I assume a lot of people in the chat are as well, because the first one was really, really good. Plague Tale Requiem is coming this October. Yeah, it's one of those October games. And they had an interview with the developers in The Verge, and I want to. They touched briefly on why this game is only coming to this generation of consoles. It's not a cross-gen game; it's a current-gen only game, and they said that the gruesome red technology was impossible for them to realize on last-gen consoles. I'm quoting now from the interview. They said, "The increased quality allows us to consider sequences that were previously impossible, such as chases with hundreds of thousands of rats or locations that evolve dynamically according to the story and events." So, I wanted to discuss that with you briefly before we get into some of the bigger topics of the week. What do you think? There were already like sequences with a massive amount of rats on the screen in the first one. What has me really interested is like, what do they mean with dynamically changing environments and dynamically evolving story and events and stuff like that. What do you expect? Is this going to be a non-linear game where you get to actually make decisions that impact the outcome? What do you expect there?
Yeah, it sounds a bit different, and it could also be with regards to potential maybe environmental destruction. So
yeah, probably.
For instance, there could be like a swarm of rats in a dark attic at the top of a building, and you happen to hit this explosive barrel when you're throwing one of your flaming slingshot things, and the exploding barrel blows up, and the roof comes down, and the rats stop pouring out, and then they're all out in the open and things like that. And it could be dynamic environments where rats are literally in certain areas and you don't know where they are, but it can happen depending on what your choices are and how you choose to go through that location. In the first one as well with the rats, there were swarms of rats. It was done as best as I think they could do. for the technology they had, specifically how many rats they had on screen. But it was very much there weren't high detail in terms of the kind of models that they used for the rats as well. They were pretty basic. They were just scurrying back and forwards really quickly, and I don't think they needed high quality models to do that. And I think as well, the rat models specifically when someone got killed or died, etc., it was just as soon as they touched kind of the beginning of it, they would die. And the rest of it really was just there for visual perspective, to make it as look like there was a lot of rats to kill you, etc. On this occasion, I think it could be that all of those are now kind of properly 3D modeled rats, who kind of can be a little bit more unpredictable, or for instance, you might be able to wade through a certain section, but then they all jump out, or it's the rats might have kind of different behavioral patterns that we're not aware of. So last time it was just stay in the light, you're good, but it could be that the light is no longer a permanent protection. They could. It could
like
be
kind of like smarter rat swarms, like better simulation of their intelligence, if you want. If you want to. I think so too. And I also think we will see a lot more destructive environments and so on. And it kind of would fit into the new capabilities of the consoles, because I think the biggest upgrade definitely was the CPU this time. And stuff like simulation of intelligence and destruction simulation of physics and stuff like that is usually CPU based limitations. And so can't wait to see
as well. Like if you ever think back to the original trailer, and one thing that didn't happen in the first game was any of these kind of tsunamis of rats that kind of flow down the street. But in the trailer, it shows these tsunamis of rats coming. So it could be things like that, like these chase sequences, for instance, like where this tsunami of rats is coming behind you and you haven't really run for it.
But you really didn't see them. You just knew they are coming there. And like this time, they are probably on screen. And like you said, they are hopefully a little bit more dynamic towards your behavior and what you're doing. Absolutely. So here we go. Drawnty J sends in another $2 super chat. Thank you so much, man. He says, I've been playing The Quarry. Yeah, I have heard nothing but good things, but I haven't played it myself. Did you try it out?
I'm waiting for a sale on it. I like them kind of games. I've forgotten the name of it. The anthology that came out not too long ago. You know what I'm talking about as well, Coop.
I know. I know what you mean. The
like the Man of Medan and things like that. I've forgotten the name
Man of Medan.
Dark Pictures. The Dark Pictures anthology.
Exactly.
I love all them games. I loved Until Dawn on PlayStation. To be fair, Until Dawn, I watched loads of playthroughs and watched different people's reactions to getting different characters killed and things first, because it's a great watch as well as a great play, and seeing how different choices and mistakes that can kill off characters throughout the games. And it's always great to see that. And I like them games because it is literally down to you. If you make a mistake, or if you have different relationships with different characters, etc., then it will dramatically change the outcome of the game. And you can have one person living, two people living, the entire collection of cast living if you go down the right routes. Depends on how you play the game, depends on the outcome, and that's always very interesting. So that means the story is never the same either. It's always going to be different for every playthrough, because you might mess up in one area, or you might choose a different, I'm going to behave this way with this guy this time and see what happens. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I'm personally waiting for a sale for it, because this is probably the first. Even Until Dawn was pretty cheap, but the Dark Pictures anthology games were like £20-something each.
Yeah,
this is full price.
It's full price. Yeah,
I'm not. I
same
pay
here.
Full price for this kind of game.
Same here. I also decided to wait for sale, or maybe a Game Pass drop. You never know. Usually the games that I buy suddenly drop into Game Pass. So
Yeah.
People should just wait. When I buy the game
Just
a
in
month
case.
later,
The
it'll hit.
ones that are
It'll.
like kind of that on the fence around. I
Yeah,
always
exactly.
the ones that I'm on the fence with. I just go, I'll wait, just in case.
All right, man. PlayStation announced something today. You've heard that? PlayStation Stars was announced. It's a new
Yes.
loyalty program for PlayStation users. It's free to join. You get rewards by completing campaigns, activities, trophies, etc. Loyalty points can then be redeemed for PlayStation Network wallet funds and other stuff. It's going to launch later this year, and there will also be digital collectibles, like including iconic characters that you can somehow collect. So
Sounds
yeah,
like an
that's
NFT.
yeah. That was my question. Does this sound familiar to you? So we should separate the discussion probably. Let's get to the digital collectibles in a second. But the first part,
Yes.
does this sound familiar to you?
It does, and it's great. I do like the differences they have in it, though. They've mentioned, for instance, and this is going to be a little bit more. I think they're focusing this on a more competitive edge for rewards. So yes, they have them for getting trophies, but they've also got one, for instance, for getting the first platinum in a game in your geolocation. So for instance, it might be Europe, might be the UK, whatever it is. So you get additional bonus rewards if you're the first person to platinum a brand new title that comes out. They did mention as well that you get rewards for simply playing a game once a month. Differences there, of course, for those who play on Xbox know that every time you boot up a game daily, you get reward points. So the only thing, of course, is we need to know how this reward system is going to work. What stars are you going to get? What do they equate to? What can you redeem them for fully? Because, of course, I know they haven't really mapped out what you can technically redeem them for, and other than the second part, which we'll speak about. But it's good. I mean, I think everybody in the Xbox community actually loves the reward schemes.
Yes.
Who
doesn't like to get free money for playing games?
For playing games, yeah. And even technically for spending on games. So when you buy, you get those points back, and you haven't had that with PlayStation. You've had it with Nintendo because they have reward points for buying games, at least, not for doing any activities. Didn't have that with PlayStation, but now you can, which is good. That's a bonus. So
Definitely.
you get it for spends, you get it for playing games, you get it for doing certain quests and tasks. So it's great. I love it on the Xbox. Of course, I know people that go through every different challenge that is there and play every game that they tell you that they challenge you to play, and use them all and make sure they do the punch cards every day. And they've bought Xboxes brand new outright, and controllers and everything you can imagine outright on the store. So it has its massive benefits, and a lot of those people that do all these challenges on Xbox don't even purchase things to get them additional points. They just literally do the tasks. So it's literally free money. So they're getting an Xbox for playing games.
It's like I don't do the punch card thing, and so I'm not really tracking it. I know I probably should, but there's just so many things you should do in life. Exactly. But every once in a while I just log in, and then I'm excited to get another $25 gift card or something like that for free, and it is just awesome. And it's a cool stuff that it's coming to PlayStation as well. Like you said, it kind of sounds like the light version of it, but still, we shall see how it turns out, and if it's successful, it's a good thing.
I think they'll certainly work on it as it goes, because they'll need it, much like Xbox Rewards. It didn't just become as good as it was today, and it's had lots of refinements across the way. So I think initially they're going to say, okay, well, how quickly do people build up points in this method? And if they're not building them up quick enough to be able to make it worthwhile for them, then we'll refine it and make it so that they can earn more points for more things, or more tasks are available, etc. So it'll get better as it goes on. But the promising thing and the good thing is that they're actually implementing it in the first place.
Absolutely. Real quick, I want to catch up on a super chat coming from Tronty J. He asks, "You want me to gift it to you?" I think he's referring to the Quarry,
Oh,
our discussion.
you do enough, brother.
Man, you don't have to do that, man. Honestly, you're so generous each and every time here on the show. Really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Yeah. So the second part, this collectible thing. It definitely sounds like an NFT thing, but it isn't. Who was it in chat? I've read it here. Kirby Luis pointed also out it's not an NFT. There's no blockchain involved. But everyone's mind definitely jumped towards that. So yeah, you will also get some sort of digital collectible. Honestly, that I don't know who it is for. It isn't for me. Something like that. I don't care if I get a digital character to collect in my, I don't know, PlayStation card or something. But yeah,
I think I read somewhere on there that it was. I think they said like it was like wallpapers or images of your favorite collectibles and statues. Like, okay, is anybody going to redeem that for a wallpaper? And if somebody does unlock that as a wallpaper, wouldn't they just then share it out so others don't have to buy it? So that's why I've never understood kind of posters and digital wallpapers that aren't just given away anyway, because they're gonna be done in that sense.
True. So good stuff. We shall see. It comes later this year. I'm definitely gonna sign up. Right around the time probably when we will play God of War on the PlayStation. So, and I take you by your word. By then you will have a PlayStation 5, so I can call you my PlayStation buddy.
Yeah.
Listen, have you played Control?
I have not.
You have not. You have, but you have played other Remedy games.
Yeah. I've played Alan Wake, for instance.
Oh,
Sorry, I've played Alan
All right. But you have played Fable, and you are probably excited for the next one, the new one from Playground. And this week, there was the announcement that the writer of Control has moved over to, over to Playground, and is the new narrative lead, Anna Megill. I hope I pronounced her name right, correctly. Has now taken charge as the narrative lead of the new Fable game for Xbox. She previously worked, of course, on games like Control and Quantum Break, Avatar. She worked on Avatar, the movie, and Dishonored, the game. So quite the talented gal, I would say. Dishonored was great. Control, the writing was fantastic, and now she's working on Fable. That just tells me that they will definitely put an emphasis on storytelling and narrative and writing on Fable, and that's exciting. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we all know, for anybody who's played Fable, they know that narrative is essentially king in that game. It's not just the crazy things you can get up to or kicking chickens or anything like that. It's like the narrative, the choices that you make, whether or not you're good or evil or anything like that, is pretty much the entire purpose of the game. So the narrative needs to be great. If the narrative isn't great, then essentially that is exactly the gameplay, and everything else in that game can be great. But if the narrative isn't there and it isn't a Fable game, then that's what it'll let it down. So I think, unlike a lot of other games that are coming out for Xbox, Fable specifically needs a great narrative. It needs the same humor that it used to have.
Yeah.
It needs the same storytelling that it had. It does. If out of all of the Xbox games that are in development, that one is the most important thing about it, is the narrative and the storytelling. I think the rest of it comes second. The first thing for that game, it needs to have the narrative and the storytelling.
Yeah. Definitely. along, I think, of course, with the core gameplay mechanics.
Yeah,
It feels, if combat feels awful, or
feels like original Fable.
yeah, exactly. Or if the RPG mechanics aren't working or stuff like that, of course, that also hurts the game. But I'm with you. In a Fable game, narrative is important. Writing is incredibly important, because I think that is what made Fable so strong, is that moment to moment humor and the moment to moment conversations you had in that game, that just felt awesome, and were just funny. And so I'm glad that they are putting emphasis on that, and that they got obviously a talented woman joining that team, to take over the lead there, because so far Playground probably didn't have the biggest experience in storytelling. How could they? They just they only released, or only in quotation marks, racing games, with Forza Horizon, which were fantastic, but no storytelling, obviously. So I can't wait. And I see in chat the discussion comes up, of course, about the release date. So I want to hand that question definitely right to you, man. Let's put a bet, we don't have to bet, but let's put your guesstimation down right here. When is Fable gonna come out?
I'd be more inclined to see it like holiday 24, beginning 25. The reason I'm saying that, I know Playground are kings and they develop pretty quickly, but this is a whole new ball game for them. I think they want to get it right as well. And the good thing about Playground and Ray, for instance, is that they tend to want to get things right, and not mess up. They had a slow start. Of course, Ray had a slow start with their newer IP, Sea of Thieves. That's now on track, but I don't think they would ever want that again. Playground themselves, every Forza Horizon that's released has pretty much been on, in terms of quality and performance and everything, has been on point from day one. And I think they don't want to change that narrative coming into a new IP in Fable for them. So I don't think they want to kind of go down the route where it then becomes the first game that they've released that doesn't hit the quality and performance check marks. I think they probably want to hit the same ultra impressive qualities that the Forza franchise has, in that it's pretty much always unbelievably flexible on the engine. So it's 4K 60 and it's got all of the bells and whistles going off on your best performing console. Or you can have performance modes at 120 or whatever it is. And like, this engine is super flexible and ultra capable. And I think they want to kind of retain that going forward. So I think they'll be just purposefully taking their time. And to be honest, with Playground games among very limited studios these days, like I would if you would mention Insomniac. If you said Insomniac's creating a game, you think, oh, I don't care when that's coming out because I trust them to do a good job. They've always done a good job. Same for me when it comes to Playground. Like, Playground have always hit it out on the park. They've always done well. The performance and the graphics and everything's been there on par. It's just a case of they're a very competent studio. I have full confidence that whatever they deliver will be done correctly. So take your time, because I'm not concerned about them. Other studios that we've never seen before, we can rightfully be concerned about. The Initiative's brand new. We're concerned about their project because we have no idea what that's going to be like. But thankfully, because of track record, we can say, right, I'm not concerned about Playground. When that game comes out, whether it's 24 or 25, it's going to be a good game. We just hope that, again, as mentioned, the narrative, we hope the narrative lives up to expectations.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I put up a poll in the chat, so guys, go in there, vote. I want to hear your thoughts. When will Fable finally hit? I'm not sure. I'm right there with you about Playground wanting to hit it out of the park. They want to deliver a quality game, and they're gonna take the time they need to do that. They literally said a few years ago that their target is to become one of the best studios in the world. When people talk about quality games, the name Playground should pop into their head, that that's their target. And I think Fable is a significant and big step towards that, an important step. It is the first time they do something outside of the Horizon series, which was absolutely fantastic each and every time, no doubt. But yeah, that's new
I think
waters.
they also don't want to just now be labeled as the Horizon studio. For them, I think they want to be known as kings of development across a multitude of different IPs.
Exactly. So yeah, obviously that game is gonna take long, but my guess is still 24. So I'm gonna go with 24. Probably.
Do you think Holiday 24 though?
Holiday 24.
Yeah.
Like,
The end. The 31st of December.
And that's why we're not going to see it next year at the E3 showcase of Xbox, because it's not going to be in that 12-month window either.
Nope.
Early prediction. But yeah, let's see what people in chat have to say about this. So I'm just going to close the poll. And yeah, basically, no one thinks it's gonna, or almost no one thinks it's gonna come in 23. Only 4% voted for 23. 24 got the majority with 45%, 25 another 40%. So yeah, 24, 25 is what it seems like, and 9% voted for launch game of the next generation. So
9 years.
Yeah. Elder Scrolls is probably gonna be Elder Scrolls 6 is gonna be a launch game for the next generation.
Yeah,
that's one.
So.
Yeah.
Or the finale of this gen.
Or yeah. Maybe. We shall see. Let's move on. Have you played Red Dead Redemption 2?
Yes,
of course.
Yeah, I've played Red Dead 2, played Red Dead 1. I went back to Red Dead 1 when they put the patch on it, because it's the only one with a kind of a 4K 60 HDR auto boost patch, and that made a dramatic improvement to that old game. But yes, I've played them both yet.
Yeah, of course. So this week it was reported, reportedly, it was like that they canceled the next or current gen patch. They also are not gonna work on a remaster or remake of the first one because of the bad reception of the GTA remaster that they did last year, which I'm not surprised that it wasn't a success. Like, if you release a game in that state, come on.
You know what the major problem was? That they didn't release the original game. They released the mobile port onto consoles, and then they tried. Then they played dumb, and it didn't do well. I think they intentionally didn't want it to do well because they didn't want to do the remaster.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then the big thing is they officially announced they are not gonna support Red Dead Online 2, Red Dead 2 Online this way, with new content anymore. So yesterday there was a big funeral going on in the event. Players met in the game, in-game, and had an online funeral for Red Dead 2. And that comes like less than 4 years after the launch of the game. Red Dead 2 came out in October 2018. So my question to you is, what the hell is going on at Rockstar? I mean, they literally bathing in money.
Easy response. They could not find a sustainable way to monetize Red Dead Online, and because it could not be monetized to the extent they wanted it to, they shut it down. Simple as that. GTA Online is easy to monetize for. New cars, new houses, new jobs, new heists, new clothing, new planes, new tanks, new armor, new guns. There's so many things you can do in that. They are so limited in what they can do in this without going completely out of its era. and going like, right, what they're going to put a new train in there, like the trains that you don't drive. They can't bring new horses in because they're all the same. New carriages, maybe.
Yeah,
New
maybe
clothing,
new
new
carriages. I
guns.
mean, you could do new revolvers or shotguns or stuff
But
like that. But yeah, I'm with you. It's probably harder to
yeah,
support online. Uh they could do actual content updates and
they
charge for
could,
that.
but
They
that would
could.
require work.
That's where we are. There we go. There you would have. How could I have not seen that? Of course. Jesus.
That would require them doing actual work.
Hmm.
A new
I see.
content update. How dare they? How dare
How
they ask for
dare
this?
they? Like this massive studio with 1,000 employees sitting there, like, yeah, we are not gonna develop GTA 6 for another 5 years. We can monetize that, and then we play soccer all day, and we have a pinball machine and a bar inside, and then yeah, I should probably need to change jobs over there. No, just kidding. Of course, I love my job. I just switched jobs. So, all right, let's move on from Rockstar. It is really weird. Quick question before we move on. When do you think we will see GTA 6?
Oh, that's a good question.
This gen?
You know what it is? I don't know. I don't know because it highly revolves around how much longer the GTA 5 online infrastructure continues to be profitable. The longer that continues to be profitable and rake in millions upon millions every year from GTA Online shark cards, the less likely we're going to see GTA 6.
Yeah.
They're just going to keep pushing that back and pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back and just say, listen, this thing's still working. We're still pumping out content. We're still putting new heists on there. We're still putting new missions on there.
And
We've
we
got
sell
these
you the
things going
remaster
on.
of the remake, and with the next.
We still haven't got the next. Well, we've
patch
got the
and-
next gen update for it now. I think, haven't we? It wasn't really that impressive, but that's out now. So they've already. I wouldn't even say they've milked it as far as they can yet, because I think they'll continue to put new planes and cars and mansions and missions in there until the end of time, really, because it makes them too much money, and that is ultimately the problem. The reason we're not seeing GTA 6 if it started to slow down and it wasn't that profitable anymore, or it becomes less profitable than it was, then they'll be going, right, now's the time to start pumping out GTA 6 because we need something new. But it's showing absolutely no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, right there with you. And I see the chat is also has different opinions than it. Patrick says GTA 6 will never come out, while Sin is a little bit more confident GTA comes out late 24 and early 25.
I think it's more likely to be a 26 game.
Yeah.
And that's just based on, as I mentioned, how profitable GTA 5 online is.
Still is. Yeah, true. All right. Speaking about profitable, this week, one thing that kept the gaming community busy again and was a big discussion point is prices of games. We know, obviously, that Sony decided to start this generation by increasing the prices of their games to $70, which is 80 euros here in Germany, or across Europe, actually, which is roundabout, depending, of course, on exchange rate, $90. What's it in the UK? What is the pricing of a PlayStation 5 game in the UK?
£70.
£70, which is even
equates
more
to about
than
80, maybe it's about 80 euros,
80?
and that equates to about 95 to $97.
Yeah, something like that. So, guys and gals in the US, you get games for cheap. Let me tell you that. Game prices are even more ridiculous. Even more ridiculous in South America, like Brazil has insane game prices. They are at like 130, $140 converted, like in that range. It's really insane. So yeah, but other publishers followed suit, of course, like Activision or 2K. And of course, this week, the community discussed again game prices because of the Last of Us remake, remaster, remake, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it remake, because that's what it is officially titled. And is selling a remake at this increased full price, $70, €80 respectively. Worth it. And should games more general have that kind of price tag? I want to hear your thoughts, and of course I also want to hear the thoughts of the community. I will put up a poll in a second in the chat, but yeah, Dutch, let's hear your thoughts on increased game prices.
Yeah, up until very recently, and I'm thinking more across the lines of should we say not independent developers, but developers that are not part of a Microsoft or a Sony, etc. Up until recently, I didn't think there was a justification for the increase in costs. They were like, oh well, it's costing us more to do X, Y, and Z these days, which is why it's increased. It's like, well, not really. That doesn't have to be passed on to the consumer. An additional 10 isn't, in the grand scheme of things, once tax is deducted and you've actually got that in your pocket, $10 to you makes absolutely no difference. It is little to nothing. If you're selling 1 million copies at $10, of course that could equate to 10 million, but that's 10 million then taxed, and of course on that amount of money you're getting significant taxes. So it really the profit made on that amount charged to the consumer is little. They don't make much from that. However, working in the energy market now and knowing how much business, specifically corporate businesses, are now paying, if you think consumer energy costs are ridiculous, out of contract costs now, so somebody that is not in the contract costs in the UK currently, for some large corporations, some PLC companies, can be as high as £1 per kilowatt, and £265 per day standing charge and above. Now, £1 per kilowatt, you could possibly use as a regular home consumer anything up to maybe 15 to 20 kilowatts a day, maybe a little bit more. When you're talking businesses, they can be using tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of kilowatts of energy per day. So when you're talking like costs of energy that are anywhere between 40 and 40 pence per kilowatt and £1 per kilowatt, it's a significant outlay for businesses specifically, whether that be an independent developer who's having to run 100 devs and all of the computers and servers and cooling and everything like that in the office and whatever it is that they've got there, as well as develop a game and find funding for the game, etc. The outlay on overheads, just standard overheads, has increased significantly. And of course, they're now under pressure because of a significant rise of inflation, and taxes, and the cost of food, the cost of living has went through the roof. We've all seen
everything got more expensive. But let me ask you. I mean, the price increases came before all that.
Yes, it did.
It
is. It's that's what I'm saying. It's beforehand. I would have said it is unjustifiable. Right now, I think now there is more of a justification to have a price increase to help support the studios now in current market than there was before. I think before you would have found it a hard reason to, and I think even Microsoft then would have said no, and they did say no. They were like, no, the games are staying at that. But now we're seeing a couple more Microsoft games that are going to be coming up shortly be priced at that 70 mark. And I think if you have a look at the overheads going forwards, I think the overheads now, when the cost of potentially increasing staff wages to try and counter inflation, etc.,
Yeah.
those things are starting to take effect, and they're like, we're going to have to push this back on that. But previously, no. Right now, because of the economic, let's face it, it's going to be an economic collapse.
Yeah,
It will be.
we're on the brink of
Um,
it, definitely.
yeah. So
Let me
because of
briefly.
that, I think now there's
Yeah.
more of a justification to try and balance the book, should we say?
Yeah, yeah. I will get to a couple of points of yours in a second. I just want to
Yeah.
briefly throw in the super chat from our super generous friend here today, Drawn TJ, sends in another $5 and says, $70 games are okay if you have a lot of Microsoft reward points. I have 300,000, so that's $300 worth. Yeah, yeah. Good on you for having so many points, man. So you're doing the punch cards, unlike me. And Drawn TJ also says, but it depends, of course, on
Oh,
the
absolutely.
game. Um,
Absolutely.
so let me start with the argument depends on the game. I get that value is subjective.
Yeah.
Value to is something different to everyone, and one person says like I like spending for me it is worth $70 or €80 to spend on a 10-hour single player experience that is very well crafted, and others say no, for me I need at least a game like, I don't know, a Skyrim or something, or Witcher, where I play like 150 hours to get my money's worth. Of course, value is subjective.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't. I'm strongly against increased prices, and it's not just because I don't want to spend more money. I think there's a lot more to it. None of these publishers that have increased the prices have reported in the last decade a single quarter where they didn't make a record-breaking revenue. So each and every quarter we get the reports of significantly increased revenue streams and record earnings, and most of that is because of in-game monetization. That is something we didn't have like 15 20 years ago. So it's, if yes, development costs have increased. The energy thing is you brought up is doing right now, especially, of course, a significant part. And I totally get the argument that if they would announce that price increase right now, probably less people would be surprised because everything increases in price right now. However, they didn't. They started the generation with that. They just said, "Ah, come on! Now we charge you $10 more, and then we're fine, and just make even more money." We still have the microtransactions in there. Look at GT7, Gran Turismo 7 this year. Yeah, EA just reported the biggest earnings in microtransaction that they have ever made in the first quarter of the year, and they didn't even bring out a new game for that, or new content for that matter, for one of their games. So I think seriously that developers and publishers have found a lot of ways to extra monetize, to compensate for these for the increased development costs with microtransactions and all the other stuff. The second thing is, of course, a lot more people are playing games these days. If you compare that to, let's say, go back to 15 years, even 10 years ago, less people played games. The gaming industry in general is very healthy in terms of its user numbers. It's growing business. That's why Microsoft is investing so much money into gaming right now, because they see this as a growing business. And of course, it could be, it definitely could be that per sold unit they make less return, but overall their revenue is doing very well. There's not a single publisher that increased their game prices whose business is doing bad. It's really not. It's really not that we need to pay another $10 to keep the lights on at EA or Activision or so.
Exactly.
We don't. We just don't.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a problem with it, with these increased game prices, because I also see what is elsewhere happening. You mentioned increased energy prices, increased prices for basic items of the everyday living, like food, clothing, and stuff like that, is getting expensive. We are on the brink of a recession. And we're just coming out of a 2-year pandemic where a lot of people lost their jobs and struggled with other financial issues. And I just don't see the necessity. If
Yeah.
I want to spend another extra $10, I'm just gonna throw like a super chat towards one of my favorite creators, but not
Yeah.
at an Activision, not at a Sony or a 2K.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that.
I think a point I want to highlight as well from the chat from Sin
Yeah.
a little bit earlier on. He mentioned that he's never understood why digital games are priced the same as physical, and I've got to agree. That's something I've never understood, why they decide to charge the same price for digital as they do for physical. You don't have distribution costs.
Yeah.
You don't have the costs of parts, i.e., cases and artwork that needs printed and shipped
Storage and
and
so on. Yeah.
storage, and then going to then price at retailer and their cut of stock and that and their profits, etc. You don't have that issue with digital, so why is it priced the same? I've never understood that.
Yeah, me neither. And especially considering that physical has the big, well, quote unquote, disadvantage that it
Yeah.
can be resold. So the second time, if you sell your copy as your physical copy, the developers will never ever make a return on that, and you have to price that into your business case of physical versus digital. So I'm right there with you. I don't understand that. But let me just briefly catch up on a super chat from Kirby Luis, because he says not just sends in the generous $5. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. He says something interesting. He says, either you price the game at $60 and I'll consider buying, or price it as $70 and I won't buy at all. But of course, I'll still play it. Yeah.
Yeah, gar! I see you sailing the seas, Kirby.
Yes, he does. He does. And I think that's another thing. In general, I don't have any. Maybe it's just me getting older, and being able to afford now the games I want to play. But I have the feeling that like piracy in general went down a little bit because of things like super cheap sales on Steam and super or free games that all these
Game
stores
Pass.
like the Epic Store, everyone is giving out. Exactly. Then we have things like Game Pass. And yeah, I think to the point of Kirby, it doesn't help towards piracy. If you increase prices, it will make piracy, of course, more attractive. And I don't know if you have the counter effect then hitting.
Exactly.
Like you're definitely not compensating then your your increased
thing
development
leading
costs.
to as well outside of piracy really is if people aren't for instance, if a lot of people see the game and they say it's X cost 70 pounds or 80 euros, the vast majority of people that don't want to pay it just won't, and they'll just say I'll wait for a sale. And the more people that end up just saying I'll wait for a sale and the initial sales decline significantly, then the quicker that the game is going to end up having to go on sale in order to get it sold at all. So it's not really like in the short run or long run, it's not going to do them any favors because consumers know what they want and they know the price point that they're willing to pay. So if that price point is too high for them, then they will not buy it at that price. They will either wait or, like Kirby said, they'll sail the pirate seas in order to play it. So yeah, it is one of them situations.
Yeah. And especially with like things like Game Pass and of course now also the PlayStation Plus subscription. I think these kind of subscriptions significantly change the way how, at least I don't know about you, but the way how I judge value in gaming. It even at the regular price of $60 or 70 euros, I find sometimes it harder to buy a game because I'm sitting there like, all right, at the end, you guys are fighting for my time, not just my money, also my time. I don't have to play time. I don't have the time to play everything anyway. So
Yeah.
am I just gonna invest $70 into a game, buy it, or do I spend my time on a game that I don't have to pay for because I have a subscription service like Game Pass, like PS Plus, Extra, and so on? And don't get me wrong, I still buy my games. I do, but I just realize that I judge the value in gaming differently. And at the same time, some of these publishers just decided to, oh, okay, let's go the other route. Instead of making it cheaper, let's increase the prices. So yeah.
Yeah.
Silent Cypher sends in a super generous super chat of $10 and says, I'd be fine if it was $70, but not loaded with a bunch of obnoxious microtransactions, unfortunately. We know that will not happen. Right there with you. Right there with you. You pay full price for the game. And on top of that, you get these outrageous microtransactions. It is, yeah, 80 or
that's one of the reasons I disliked the modern MMO structure of the ESOs and the Final Fantasy Onlines, because you're constantly paying for expansions and you're paying a monthly subscription, and then you're doing microtransactions. It's like, I know MMOs are an absolute gold mine for MTX and consistent revenue, but it's a reason I dislike them, because often, on most occasions, you'll see the full edition of Final Fantasy at full price, Final Fantasy 14 at full price, and still have to pay a monthly subscription. And then the expansion comes out and you have to buy that, and that's another 40 on top of that, as well as your monthly subscription. As well as whatever thing you want to, like time savers or whatever.
Absolutely.
It's insane. It's insane. And he's right. He's right. And that's the problem a lot of the time. And we've praised games that have come out and they've been a price, but nothing else is needed to it. Everything is in the game. Like we mentioned, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Every cosmetic is in that game.
Everything is in there
and
can be unlocked by playing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing, no microtransactions, nothing. And that is the way that single player games should be. But unfortunately, we know that's not the case.
Yeah. True. Real quick, we have more than 80 live viewers here in this podcast, which is awesome. I know it's summertime, and I really appreciate each and every one here showing up, participating here, of course, also in the chat. Really appreciate it. And if you could do me a big favor, just hit that little like button. Doesn't cost you anything. It helps these little shows out a lot. Really appreciate it, you guys, and thanks for stopping by. Just wanted to say thanks to the awesome community. But Dutch, let's move on from game prices and talk about Halo real quick.
Our
Oh,
daily dose of depression.
Yeah. Well, Halo co-op fighting was supposed to come out this week. I think a lot of people initially understood that it's coming on 11th, at least in beta testing or flighting, how they said it. It wasn't scheduled to release full time, but it was scheduled to come into flighting 11th. And then Monday, they came out, and Brian Gerard said on Twitter, the team is still working on our upcoming Halo Infinite Network co-op Insider Flight build. While we always said our target was the week of July 11th, many sites reported simply as starting July 11th. Still hoping for this week, but it will not start today. So he tweeted that out, obviously, on the 11th. So today, of course, IGN was really enthusiastic in putting out a clickbait article on it. But yeah, I wanted to hear your thoughts. what's going on. They will have a stream later, in an hour. I think this stream is gonna start where they will show the co-op for the first time. But yeah, obviously people are still not playing it, and I mean the week is basically over. Usually those things don't drop on a Friday. These beta flights, beta tests, they start on a Monday, because then you have the work week ahead of you and people are actually in the office. You're never going to start that on a Friday before the weekend and everyone is off. But these days, who knows, with 343. So what do you think? When is the flight coming, and when will we finally play Halo co-op?
I think 343 now just need to say there's going to be flighting in July. Not say it until the week that they know it's going to be ready to flight. With something that is as anticipated as co-op, saying the week of the 11th, knowing, and by now they know that publications, news sites, and the general public are going to take the 11th as the 11th. They're not going to think the week of the 11th. If you say the week of the 11th, they're going to think the 11th, it's going to start.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as we've said before, if you're going to mention a date, you're going to be held to that date, whether you said the week of or not, because that is still the number 11 that was mentioned. Unfortunately, you're going to get the blowback. However, on that, I still, to this point now, initially I understood kind of the technicalities behind it and why it might have been so difficult to get it to work. However, it's still reverting back to the old slingshot mechanics. So everyone's tied to the host. You can only go within 1,000 feet or 300 meters from the host of the game. And then you get brought back. You can't go any further than that. Thankfully, 300 feet, 300 meters, 1,000 feet is a relative distance in the game. However, if there's two people flying about and one of them flies off really quickly in the other direction, whilst the other one flies in that direction, or they get lost for some reason and separate away from each other and miles away, then and you're doing something, you needed help, and you just step over that threshold away from the host, that's it, you're gone again.
Yeah.
The original thing was that they didn't want to use the slingshot mechanic. They were having difficulties using the slingshot mechanic in this game, which is why it was delayed. And now they've essentially settled for the slingshot mechanic. And
with a distinct distance, yeah.
It's just,
I think,
I really don't know what's happening with 343, and I don't blame the developers themselves. I think it boils down to something we've been saying for a while now, and it is a management issue. And it doesn't seem to be going away. It seems to be persistent, regardless of who they've got in charge now.
Yeah.
So there's something not right there, and that Microsoft need to really get in there and kind of nail it down. From top tier.
Yeah, it's really weird that they are not even able to put a positive spin on releasing a beta for a feature that should have been there at launch. It's like, even with that, we are now having a controversy discussion around it. And it is just like you said, at the end, it boils down to management issues. There's no other way of explaining it. May it be justified or not. If they need more time to finish the co-op, well, yeah, okay, but then don't communicate it in this way. It is just, like you said, there's just something weird with 343. And as a fan, a long-time fan of the Halo IP, it is just sad to see how they treat that actually really good game. In its core, Halo Infinite is a fantastic game. I like the campaign, the gameplay mechanics feel awesome, and now they treat it like that. Man, I forgot to close the. Pardon me. Yeah, please go ahead.
I was going to say another issue they've got now, and this is I've spoken to a few people that think exactly the same with the co-op. There's a lot of people were waiting for co-op before they started playing the game,
Yeah.
and they were waiting, and they were waiting, and they were waiting, and they went, you know what it is? Doesn't matter. I'm going to just play the game. So a lot of
Yeah.
these people that are waiting for co-op because they've always loved playing it through as co-op, as a traditional thing that they've done with a friend or a loved one, whatever it is.
Mm.
They've all just decided, you know what it is? I'm just going to play the game. I'm just going to get the mission done. And now they have, and co-op is eventually coming. They're all like, yeah, but I've played through it now, and it's just the same story. I'm not in a rush to play through it, and there's a lot of other things I can be playing.
It's a fantastic point. I've said something similar on Boom's show recently. Like at a certain point, people will simply not care anymore. Of course, there will still be like these hardcore Halo fans that are gonna play through the campaign again, but the vast majority of players are not gonna care once they have their hands on games like Diablo or a Forza or a Redfall
God
or
of War
Starfield,
or
and God of War comes
Starfield,
out, and
Redfall.
Hogwarts comes out this year, and Gotham Knights and A Plague's Tale. Like when you hit that time window, end of this year, with Avatar also still scheduled for this year. Yeah, will people really care about it? And next year, I think it is too late. Even if
Yeah.
they have a killer, season 3 update with like 10 maps and so on, is it really gonna bring back a healthy player base?
I don't think so at this point. And I've
I
seen a lot of people as well say, you know, I'll go back to playing the campaign when they release the like story expansion, the
Yeah.
promised story expansions, and that could be any time. So they're probably not going to see the vast
Yeah.
majority of the campaign players even touch co-op until whatever
Until
next
then,
campaign
yeah.
DLC comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. So now would be a fantastic time. There's literally nothing coming out you could make, no matter what you release right now.
Yeah.
It makes a huge buzz because there's no other releases. There's literally or not no news, but no bigger news to talk about. So now you could make a big buzz about it. And 343 just seem to miss these important windows, like the the launch of a console. Come on,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's
But
another
yeah,
thing as well, like it's specific for Halo, is co-op has always been a staple part of the launch of the game. So the reason they're getting so much crap about not having co-op or it being delayed for so long is because it was always a staple release for the game. Now, one of the issues you had with and why they got blowback with Halo 5 was because I think it was online only at launch and no local co-op, or was it
no,
local
there was
co-op and
no
no
co-op at
online?
all.
No local at all, wasn't it? It was
No,
just online only.
it wasn't even online. There was no co-op in the entire game.
Was it Halo 5? No, I think
Halo
I think
5.
Halo 5 was online only and no local, or local and no online. It was one of these ridiculous things that they've always had
Yeah.
online and local. But so they kind of already messed that up
Right,
for the
you're
previous
right.
one.
Yeah. It was just split screen missing, I think.
Yeah, it was split screen was missing, and that was like, what are you doing? Like, this was always the easiest thing to implement.
Easiest
How
thing.
can you do online and not local?
Yeah.
And now, of course, we haven't had it at all, and it's usually a staple franchise release. You get it with the release.
Yeah.
And now it's releasing like a year after its original launch, and you're like, what is happening?
What is
Like,
happening? Yeah.
So
Yeah. True. Yeah, and I just forgot to close the poll I put up earlier about the game prices.
Game
so
price.
are people fine with increased game prices, $70, 80 euros respectively? 5% said absolutely, 45% said depends on the game, and 50% said not justified. So yeah, only very few people are really okay with the increased game prices. So yeah, but let's move on from Halo. I want to move over to the community questions this week because we have an awesome community, and they have fantastic questions, and they write in each and every Wednesday, either on Twitter or on YouTube. Is where you can enter the questions for the community questions. And this week we have a record amount of questions, and actually some absolutely fantastic ones. So let's talk about some of the community questions. All right. The first one of the day comes in from Harry Tasker, and he asks, who is going to Gamescom? Meet and greet. Dutch, will you be there?
This year, probably not. Next year, possibly. It's a good point. Possibly
Same.
next year. I don't know about this year now. I think it's getting far too close to start thinking about that. I know you're not, because it's holiday time, but
Yeah.
next year, probably next year. I'm even thinking about E3 next year as well, and meeting up with some of the other guys from across the pond.
That would be the dream, yeah. But that's a prize question.
One of the good things about E3 as well for next year, which is a positive change, is that they've teamed up with the guys from PAX.
Yes.
To help create E3 next year. So I think, and PAX has always gone down well. It's always well managed.
Yeah.
There's always a lot of positive feedback from PAX and the people that go and go to PAX every year, PAX East. So I think that'll be a good thing for E3 and trying to kind of gain back some ground. So yeah, not this year, but next year.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go this year, but yeah, it's in the middle of the holiday season. Each and every state in Germany has different summer holidays, and it's in the middle of ours. But yeah, the family vacation was actually planned this year to be in June. But then my son had his accident and multiple surgeries. He's fine now, but yeah, we couldn't go in June on vacation, so we had to move the family vacation, and the only possible week was actually the Gamescom week. So yeah, I will be in Italy camping, which is awesome, but yeah, unfortunately I won't be able to attend Gamescom in person. So, but I definitely have plans for next year. Jonathan Smith writes in and says, "Hey Box, after hearing the discussion on Boom's Xbox Factor podcast about Bethesda and the modding community, how big of a benefit to console gamers would it be to receive modding support on Starfield? And do you see Bethesda implementing that solution for the game at all?" If it's okay, I want to go first. I love that question. Starfield is gonna be big with mods. The Bethesda games, the Bethesda engine is called the Creation Engine, and it is literally called the Creation Engine because it always allowed for the community to create stuff. And this is not going to change this time. The big question is, how big will the mod support be on console? Now that Bethesda is owned by Microsoft and Xbox tries to bring the ecosystems together, what do you think, Dutch? Will we see a bigger mod support on console than we did with Skyrim had mods, Fallout had mods, but it was really very limited. Like not every mod was allowed, and they were reduced in size, like only 5 gigabyte maximum.
I think
for mods.
think this time around, yes, it's going. I think it'll match PC for the mods that can be used elsewhere. First of all, it is the first Bethesda game that is PC Xbox only. They don't have to think about this is going onto a Nintendo or this is going onto a PlayStation, and having to think about other ecosystems and the monetizations and whatever that goes along with it. All the way that it works, all the size, the file kind of storage systems that each one of these has, and differing speed things that they have to worry about. They're focused on one thing and one thing alone. They have XVA and direct storage solution now available on both PC and on Xbox. So the modern community, in terms of being able to load in their assets for whatever they're creating, it's going to be a lot more streamlined across the two available platforms, which is PC and Xbox. But not only that, again, I think it's testament to the fact that it is being developed primarily on a Windows platform and an x86, that we're going to get this streamlined mod approach, I think, for this next one. And I think
Absolutely.
Bethesda want it that way as well, to be honest, because they want everybody to be able to play that. And we have seen, like you say, that the modding on Skyrim is phenomenal. That's only continued to grow over the years. It doesn't quite marry up the same as the as the awesome and wild mods that you can get over on PC. But again, like I say, that's an older game, a much older game, with a lot of kind of engine limits that it can really do across platforms, with the memory limits and the memory bandwidth issues and things like that. And the memory difference these days between console and PC is a stark contrast compared to what we had last gen. The memory constraints we had on console compared to PC last gen was far different to what it is now. The graphical capabilities were far different now. Last gen than they were now. So I think it's going to make it a lot easier for creators as well to get in there and do what they want to do and create things for everybody to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be major important, and Bethesda know that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I asked the question in chat. I will leave the poll open for a bit. Do you guys want more mods on console? Let us know, and we will come back to this poll in a few. Let's get to another question first before we come back to mods and discuss the community's thoughts here. G writes in and says, the situation this week with Ubisoft and Steam over Assassin's Creed Liberation has made me think about digital ownership again. We seem to have just accepted the consumer rights that companies and governments have given us, but with digital purchases and subscriptions seeming to be a major way we will access entertainment in the future, what would be the rights you'd like to see digital consumers have? It's a fantastic question.
Permanent. The only right question here is, once you've purchased something, then it becomes permanent. I understand if online infrastructure for a particular game ceases to work, but for instance, a digital verification, so proof of purchase, I understand why there is digital right management initially, but I mentioned this, I don't know when it is, it's probably been a couple of months since I mentioned this last time, but for DRM for a digital game, I would imagine once you've done the initial sign on and verification, then they should really just leave it alone. Once you've purchased that game, it's been put in, it's verified that you've got you own the game. Well, essentially, once you've downloaded the game, you have that DRM certificate on your console to say you own that game. There should be no more checks. There should be offline gameplay available because you've got that digital certificate on the console. It should just revert to that stored file. It could even be a daft README document, whatever it is. It just has to be something to say this is owned by this person. And if they ever went down the route of being able to refund or return a game digitally, then they'd just remove that particular certificate off your console and be done. But I think if it is a case of, I think you mentioned it as well the other week, you were struggling. The other day, actually, you had your internet went down. For a good 20 hours or something ridiculous. And you couldn't play your single player games. And this boils down to, again, DRM. Once you've had that initial digital verification for a digitally owned game that you've purchased, you shouldn't have an issue playing that game if you're offline. It should just have something that is stored on the console that allows you to play it. And I think that is the route that we need to go down to for DRM. I can completely understand if it's an online game that has online only capabilities, and at some point in the future that has to get shut down. because they can no longer support that
The
along
servers and
with
so on.
all
Yeah.
of the other stuff. That is understandable. And you take those risks playing online only games. But for single player games, the RM shouldn't even be questionable at this point. It should be once you've purchased a digital single player game, that is
Yeah.
yours unless otherwise stated. I.e.,
Yeah.
like I say, that point in the future where they come up with the ability to return or refund or sell back
Yeah.
at a cheap cost. For instance, you might buy it at £70 and a year down the line, 2 years down the line, whatever, you sell it at half price back or £20 or something ridiculous. In which case, then they'll just remove the certificate and say, okay, no problem, there you go.
Yeah. I love that answer of yours. It didn't even cross my mind when I read the question. I was like, yeah. I didn't think of the DRM, but I love it. There should definitely be something in there. I was more like, okay, what can the government do? What kind of laws or stuff like that could they establish to strengthen digital ownership? And I mean, it is like, for instance, if you look in the automotive industry, there is like a law that requires suppliers to have spare parts available for a certain amount of time. Other industries do similar things, like where you have to support your product that you want sold to the customer for a certain amount of time. And I think this is definitely something that could be established, that like at least make a game available for 15 years. And so a platform holder can only remove the digital ownership or so after a certain amount of time. Of course, like you said, it could very well be that certain games are not playable at all after 5 years. Yeah, like Rockstar pulling the trigger basically after 4 years on Red Dead Online 2. Of course, that's a different story. You cannot force. It would be probably not okay to force everyone to have like the online servers up for this and that amount of time, but I think like at least being able to download the game and in principle have it on your system is something that would definitely strengthen the ownership rights. But man, let's go back to mods again, because now we have a couple of votes from the community in. I asked you guys, do you guys want more mods on consoles? And 74% said, oh yeah. 21 said, no, I want my ecosystem protected. And 5% said yes, but with more control than on PC. And I want to touch here on the super chat from Dave Ramos coming in. Because he... super generous friend, by the way, of the channel. He's not just a channel member, he's also going to be part of the community special next week. But yeah, he says, are there any examples of a game that became worse when mod support was added? Great show, gents. Well, that depends really on the experience of people, because like on console, what makes the console ecosystem so special towards the PC ecosystem is that it is a controlled environment. Every game that is published on a PlayStation, on an Xbox, even on a Nintendo Switch has to go through certifications. So every game has to meet certain quality standards. Now with mod support, you bring in content that changes the game significantly, in a way that cannot be certified. So these kind of mods wouldn't go through or don't go through Xbox certification, or PlayStation certification. And of course, with that, you have the chance of getting stuff into your ecosystem that you do not want in there. I think like back to his question, are there any examples of a game that became worse when mod support was added?
Every game that's ever created that has mods.
Probably, yeah. Some mods really do have their issues. Of course, you can always say it's always optional. Just don't install it if you don't want it. And I'm right there with that kind of
And
thought
the
in
thing is, as
general.
well, is that the great thing about mods is specifically games like Skyrim and GTA, etc., is
Mm,
mods often go way beyond just changing characters or skins or anything like that. We've
mm.
seen some ultra impressive, ultra realistic graphical upgrades for things like GTA, where it's been
Definitely.
almost
I mean, those are the
photorealistic.
good kind of mods, but there are
Yeah,
also like these
but they also
grinding
cause, for
mods
instance,
that are
yeah,
basically used for cheating. Yeah.
yeah, oh, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I was going to say on
um,
the flip side of that though, like, and this is, and thankfully those mod creators slash developers that are creating these things, a lot of them now work in house. But a lot of the people, a lot of people that create these things have to put disclaimers on. Listen, it only this to run this, you need this graphical setup, you
Mm,
need this card, you need this amount of memory, etc. Otherwise, it will run like crap. Um, and things, some of these higher end mods do require a lot more processing power. Whether it'll be like originally the ray tracing update for Minecraft, for instance, like when that
mm,
originally released, when it was originally in beta, it ran like crap, but it looked great, and you needed a lot of horsepower on the computer to get it to run.
mm.
Likewise for updates to Skyrim to get like ultra realistic, like I've seen some of these ultra realistic graphic enhancements for Skyrim that look absolutely phenomenal with ray traced lighting and everything that go in
Yeah.
there. But again, you need ultra like impressive hardware specs in order to run it stably.
Yeah.
And so yes, there are occasions where these things are ultra impressive, but unless you've got the capabilities, will ultimately break the game.
Yeah.
And likewise, someone can add like it could be that they've created an add-on or a mission for a game, for instance, that you download as a mod, like an additional quest.
Yeah.
But that quest might be ultimately broken, and it could end up causing issues to the actual base file of the game. Ultimately, that would
Yeah.
lose your progress.
Or you, yeah, or opens up, I don't know, security issues, stuff like that. It is a complex topic, but overall, I think like it is something that a platform holder should be able to handle in
Oh yeah,
2022. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely pro mods on
Oh,
console.
100%, 100%.
I'm just seeing also the arguments against it. Yeah, but definitely. Let's hope for more mods. And I want to read a super chat from our generous friend Silent Cipher. He sends in $5. Thank you so much. And says, would love mods for the console if visual only mods still allow achievements to be enabled. Yeah.
Completely agree. Skyrim is that exact game. You can add a 4K 60 patch for Skyrim with it before it came out
Yeah.
using the mod, and because you did that with the visual upgrades and everything to make it look ultra pretty before the official patch came out, it would turn the achievements off. Now, if it's just visual mods that you're using to make it look prettier or have a different graphical style, etc., I really don't think that should be altering the achievements on a visual aspect. I think that should be something they should be able to iron out for mods going forwards. I completely understand, however, mods that kind of give you ultimate weapons or infinity or whatever it is, and they just go, right, with these you are being completely switched off from achievements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I need to apologize to the chat. I
For the
had to
naked
remove
bots.
the porn. So no naked ladies for you today in the chat, unfortunately. Let's get to another question from the community. Here we go. Ambelix sends in a question and says, happy to see Dutch bringing S-tier beardness to the podcast. Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. With Sony having Publisher of the Year from Metacritic locked up between Horizon Forbidden West, GD7, and God of War Ragnarok, and their PC release, God of War, Uncharted, Spider-Man, and The Last of Us, how do you compare it to Microsoft's winning lineup last year? Do you think next year will be more even in terms of releases in between Sony and Microsoft, or will it swing back in Xbox favor?
God, this is a tough one. We discussed this kind of yesterday when we were
A
speaking
little
about
bit, yeah.
Gamescom.
Yeah.
Um, Xbox have got a big lineup next year.
Yeah.
They're going to come out running next year, but it is filled with games that should have been out this year. However, so far we know of just Forspoken next year. That's coming out for PlayStation. We don't know really when Spider-Man's coming out yet. I know it was possibly slated for 23. We know Wolverine isn't coming out in 23. So it's possibly 2 games. Microsoft already have 4. It could go either way, but we haven't seen Sony's hand yet. We don't know what Sony are doing next year. We don't know what Sony are doing full stop outside of Insomniac. We have no idea. Sony have managed to produce in a really difficult year this year. There is no shadow of doubt about that. They've managed to pull God of War to this year. They've managed to do or release a remake as well this year. They had a really strong start to the beginning of the year with Ratchet and Clank and Returnal and things like that. So they've had a really good year this year. There's no taking any plaudits away from Sony on that front. Microsoft completely the opposite. They've released 0 big first party games this year, but are all slated for essentially next year. So we have 3 or 4 major releases within the opening 6 months. So it's all in Microsoft's hands next year so far, but those are releases that were already slated to come out this year. So I'm not going to give them too many plaudits. So we shall see. The one thing I will say is next year's most definitely going to be a bigger year than this year. On all fronts.
On all fronts.
Yeah.
Also, third-party releases are going to be massive next year.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
And it is weird because we really don't know what Sony has for 23 in store. Like you said, we talked about this yesterday, so I don't want to go into it too much, but I think we never had an empty roadmap for Sony. They have always announced games years and years before they came out, and so you basically always had an idea what is coming. And the only game that is still slated for next year is, I think, Spider-Man 2, and that's about it. I have no doubt that they will have more than that, but as of right now, we don't know. Oh, and The Last of Us multiplayer mode.
I think that's a way off yet.
Well.
I think that's a way off yet, personally.
Yeah. And Spider-Man could very well be delayed also. So I don't know. I think they will have games next year. I don't think they will have an empty year, but I'm just saying we don't know it yet. So yeah, for next year, Microsoft's lineup looks fantastic so far. We shall see how it will. What kind of end of the year discussion 23 we will have.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. FRSX sends in a question, and he asks, hi, Sony can't deliver PS5 and Xbox can't deliver AAA in 2022. I don't share your opinion of mismanagement. It's because I said Xbox is not managing their studios properly if they have an empty 2022 as they have. He says, I believe it's the consequences of choices made 1 or 2 years ago, paying off or not. So the choices that were made by management, and that led to what we have here. But getting to his questions. But don't you think the third Xbox, Xbox Next, a future Game Pass separate show would be a nice way to please everyone? In that case, the main show would still keep at least one announcement, and other future games can be separate shows. Or all announcements of games should be back to the main show. My question is not about the show, but about perception and the way to please everyone. Thank you, and thanks to Dutch. He also mentions you in that question. So, yeah, let me. It's a long and complicated topic. I want to break it a little bit down into the big question is: do we need other show formats from Xbox? Do we have had the discussion about like a Nintendo Direct event or a state of play kind of a thing for Xbox, or should they separate it more into topics, like have a dedicated Game Pass show and have a dedicated first party event or something like that? What do you think?
I think obviously I've covered this a little bit before. I think this year the way that they did the showcase didn't work on a 12-month front because they had nothing to show for 12 months that hadn't already been shown. On a first party perspective, I think this year would have been better from a first party perspective, looking at 18-month window, because at least it stretches out to cover next year, as well as the remainder of this year. We know that the vast majority of the things that were at that showcase that were first party weren't in this first 6 months. So essentially, you write off half of that show anyway, because it's next year that we're talking about. So it's 6 months later, and then we've got a packed 6 month. Next year, however, I believe the 12-month plan will be fine. I think showing things only within 12 months would probably work well for them, because they'll show 4 games that we're expecting within 12 months that we weren't already expecting. And I think having 4 big games in between your Game Pass announcements and your second party exclusivity announcements, or partnerships that you're working with on exclusive games for them from second party or third party, that kind of together with first party, the 4 major ones you're releasing for the 12-month period, I think that would work. It didn't this time, but it doesn't mean it's not going to next time. However, it's you would love to have a separate show to say maybe the future of Xbox, and this is what you can look forward to seeing in the future. But it will then come a point where you don't have enough new things to talk about for the future, where that second show becomes irrelevant, because then you've already outlined your entire generation's game plan for brand new content within 2 years, because you've already essentially told everybody these are all of the projects. What you'd probably be better off doing is the entire showcase, for instance, and I think they did it well last year, whereas they ended the show with a few kind of further out things. And I think if they did this year, if they showed the entire showcase how it was, and then finished with maybe 1 or 2 far out things, it would have had a different perspective on the show entirely. Because then people would have been like, right, okay, we've got all this stuff that we're getting in 12 months, great.
And but we also have like a little tease, a little excitement for what is coming later. Yeah.
So I think if they did maybe just 1 or 2, here's something that's now in development at the end of the show, on top of your 12-month, I think that would iron out 90% of people's issues. I think the problem is because people like to see what they're playing now. They want to see what they're playing now, but they also want a glimpse of what's also being made,
what's coming down the line,
or coming in the future.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to kind of, like I say, balance the books a little bit on expectations and wants. And I think the issue we had this year was that they didn't mention it was going to be only 12 months until the show.
Yeah.
And that's why people were like, okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So
because expectations were different. Obviously, I've heard many people say, "Well, your expectations were too high," and I'm just I'm dying on that hill. If I go to an Xbox showcase, I want to see Xbox games, and that was the biggest problem.
And the thing is I went into the show saying you only compare them against their most recent showcase. So next year, I'll only be comparing them against the showcase this
that's
year.
That's a good point to look at it. Yeah, I love that.
This year, I compared it against last year's show, and last year's show had, within 12 months, it had immediate releases and it had future.
Yeah.
It also had CGI. It also had a little bit of gameplay. It had a bit of everything. It was perfectly balanced. This year, it wasn't.
Definitely. I think, like, in terms of, do we need to separate the topics of the shows? I don't think so. I think what we should have is, like, don't get me wrong, I loved the presentation that they did on a Diablo and a Starfield, but I kind of feel like these kind of showings were a little long,
Yeah.
and they were fantastic, but they were long. For a 1.5 hour show, to spend like 15 minutes on one single game, and I think like these kind of presentations should be in a separate show. Like really give one game a highlight show, a 20-minute, 30-minute showcase where you have like one or two games, developers explaining a little bit what is going on, over the shoulder gameplay.
I agree with that, and I agree with the way that Sony do their state of plays for games that are due out within the next month. I
It
love
doesn't
the
even
fact
have
that
to
they
be
give
like, they could have done it with a Starfield in May or something like that. Or even
I
in
like the
April.
breakdown like a month beforehand. It gets people hyped for the game because
Yeah.
you don't want to overload with it. Let's face it, you can do the breakdown of information consistently, but at some point people are just like, okay, and then it
Yeah.
releases and the hype is there, but it isn't as big as it is if you do this nice big gameplay reveal and you're just like, right, this is the game. It's coming out in
This is
3 weeks'
it. Yeah.
time. Let's go. Like I
Yeah.
love that's why I like the state of plays the way they do them with your God of War Ragnarok and which we're expecting in August, September, I think, is they're doing the state of play for that. And the Horizon Forbidden West, the state of play was brilliant as well. We've seen a few of them like that, and they're really great because it's like, right, this is what the gameplay is going to be like. This is what the mechanics are. This is the kind of a glimpse at the story, the characters. Right, awesome. I'm hyped, and we know it's coming in 3 weeks.
Yeah, true. I mean, like Warner Brothers did it with Hogwarts Legacy in that game, and there was like at least 6 to 8 months before that game comes out. So yeah, you could do that earlier. Not just. I'm just saying, I want them to have some excitement and a little bit more in-depth looks on some of the games that are coming, scattered across the year. But yeah, we will see what they will do with Activision Blizzard and all these studios coming in. It's kind of hard to think about all that in one showcase. So yeah, man, last question of the day comes in from Richard Freudel. He asks the question we are all struggling with right now.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips against overheating consoles, especially since Germany will likely experience temperatures near the 40-degree mark?
Keep it well ventilated in a wide open space. Even if you've got a really warm room, make sure the windows are open if you're playing a game. That's the best, really. Don't use these. And I'd say a lot of people using them, but you get these cheap kind of editions where they've got fans built into them.
No, not a good idea.
Don't use them. They're counterproductive. It's not built for it. Don't try and force air through the console to think it's generating any better of an output than it would have done itself. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work.
Don't fall into the trap and spend money on those things. But yeah, well,
okay, I got an actual tip. Where like if you want to build your own cooling system for it, but you have to do it properly. So I'm not taking any complaints if you break your console with that. But wet towels are a disclaimer. I'm not responsible if you mishandle that. But like if you position your Xbox, for instance, not vertically but horizontally, and you have a wet towel close to the bottom where the air is sucked in, so that basically the air that is sucked into the console gets basically cooled by the wet towel. Just make sure you're not dripping actual water into the console, and that will definitely help your cooling system. But other than that, yeah, it is the heat is not a fan of gamers, or gamers are not a fan of heat. It is, yeah, I have my PC on right now, and with that 3080 in it, I'm already sweating here.
I was going to say with Xbox specifically, I wouldn't be concerned. The rigorous testing they've done in the middle of deserts in containers, metal containers for the console for its heating. to make sure, because of its split motherboard kind of that they've done, I had to have rigorous testing.
Yeah.
There is no concern around that. For instance, the only issue we've got with the heating is the fact that these things pump out a lot of heat. The Xbox, not so much, but computers, dear God.
Dear God. Yeah, definitely. Consoles are definitely less power hungry, so less heat. But yeah, still, it is like it is. Exactly. So yeah, but with that, I want to wrap it up, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today. In case people are not subscribed to you, they can find your links in the description of the show, to your YouTube channel and of course the social. But let them know, what are you working on, and tell them about the exciting show that is coming next week.
Yes, indeed. Again, thank you again for having me, Boxy. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to bash our brains together and discuss these topics.
Absolutely.
But yes, awesome chat as always. Patrick, shout out to you for the quite funny comments back to the nudity. I did like that one. Made us struggle. Now I've just got images of pixelated pornography, ultra pixelated, beyond recognition, just a blur.
Yeah, he prefers a low resolution nudity, so obviously.
But yeah, great chat as always. Awesome community you've got here as well. So shout out to the community and everybody. Of course, as Boxy said at the beginning, we're only doing this because of the community, and it's testament to you guys turning up every week and showing your support. Is what drives us to continue doing this. Of course, specifically in these times where topics are light on the ground, and we're trying our very best to put shows together for you when it's pretty light on things to discuss. But yeah, shout out to you guys. Of course, you can find me on everywhere at Wondering Dutch, and next week we have our 2-year anniversary for our podcast for the Midweek Mix-Up. Time has flown. I can't believe it's already 2 years.
2 years. Crazy,
insane,
man. Crazy.
But yes, we have King David from the Iron Lords podcast. We have Gaz from Game On Daily, and the guys from, and I keep forgetting it. It's Hypercharged Unboxed.
Hypercharge Unboxed.
The developers from Hypercharge Unboxed coming on as well to discuss that game and essentially a nice interview around indie development as well, from that 5-man team creating that awesome Toy Soldiers game there, which is on Steam and Nintendo Switch now and coming to Xbox next year. So that's what we've got coming up, and I can't wait for that show next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Can't believe it's 2 years, man. Congratulations. It takes a lot of effort to run a show for 2 years, and you're doing very well, keeping it fresh each and every time. And it's a big achievement, man. I'm proud of you. I'm also very proud of the community because, like you said, they drive this show. They make the channel, the podcast to what it is. We had 88 people max here today, which is absolutely fantastic. Can't thank you guys enough. Also want to say big thank you to everyone for supporting with the super chat and the channel memberships. I really appreciate it. Means so much to me. Thank you so much for that. But definitely thanks to everyone for just showing up and being awesome. And we always have an awesome community. But with that, I want to wrap it up. Next week, we have the big community special. 4 people from the chat, from the community that have not done podcasts before. So it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for that. But for now, thank you very much for tuning in, and don't forget to game on.